Some World War II events and battles no longer have any living witnesses. For example, the last person to have taken part in the Great Escape, Dick Churchill, died in 2019 at the age of 99. Similarly, the last Doolittle raider from 1942, Richard E. Cole, passed away also in 2019 at the grand old age of 103. On the German side, the last U-boat captain, also one of Germany's greatest U-boat aces, Reinhard Hardegen, died in 2018 at the age of 105. This video, however, concerns the last living veterans of famous events, units or actions. This August will mark the 77th anniversary of the end of World War II, and that is a very long time ago. When I was a boy, every grandfather seemed to have been a veteran, including both of my own, and every Remembrance Day parade was packed with veterans festooned in campaign medals. But it has become noticeable in the last decade or so that the World War II generation is disappearing at a very unfortunate rate. Remembrance events hardly feature World War II veterans anymore, and those that are able to attend are of course very advanced in years. If you were an 18-year-old soldier in 1945, you are going to be 95 or 96 years old today. So, in order from youngest to oldest, here are 10 World War II veterans who are the last in their category. At number 10 is a Russian female pilot. Galina Brok-Beltsova is the last living member of the 3 women's aviation regiments of the Red Army formed in World War II, and was a navigator on the Peteljakov PE-2 dive bomber on the Eastern Front, rising to the rank of lieutenant. In total, Lieutenant Brok, as she was then, born in 1925, flew 36 combat missions against the Germans, earning her the Order of the Patriotic War. After World War II, she married fellow flyer Georgy Beltsov and earned a PhD in history in 1960. She worked as an historian until her retirement. The last Soviet World War II female aviator is 96 or 97 years old and lives outside Moscow. Immortalized by the TV series Band of Brothers, the exploits of Easy Company 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment are well known to millions today. E Company's 2nd Battalion 506th was part of the US 101st Airborne Division, the Screaming Eagles, and won everlasting fame following its parachute assault into Normandy on D-Day and another during Operation Market Garden in the Netherlands in September 1944, and during the terrible Battle of the Bulge, when it and many other US units stubbornly defended the important crossroads town of Bastogne. Today, only one of Easy Company's veterans remains alive, Bradford Freeman. Born in Mississippi in 1924, Freeman enlisted in 1942, assigned to E Company in England in February 1944, serving in Sergeant Donald Malarkey's 4th Squad. He became close friends with his platoon commander and later battalion commander Dick Winters. Freeman was a mortar man and took part in all of Easy Company's actions until wounded in the chest by a German Nebelwerfer rocket fragment during the siege of Bastogne. He rejoined his unit on occupation duties in Germany and Austria just after the war, being discharged in November 1945. After the war, he worked as a mailman and remained close to Dick Winters. Now aged 97, Freeman is the last living member of Easy Company. At number 8 is another Soviet war veteran, Ivan Martinushkin, who is the last living liberator of Auschwitz concentration camp. This vast network of 3 huge camps, located in German-occupied Poland, has come to symbolize the inhumanity of the Nazi regime and its policies towards Jews and many other persecuted groups. Towards the end of the war, the Germans evacuated most of the prisoners, some 58,000 who were still alive, sending them west on death marches as the Red Army approached the facility. However, the SS left behind some 9,000 prisoners that they deemed too sick to move. The SS also blew up the facilities at Auschwitz-Birkenau to try to hide their crimes, and departed 1 day ahead of the arrival of Soviet troops from the First Ukrainian Front. Among them to enter the camp on the morning of the 27th of January 1945 was Matyushkin. He and his comrades discovered thousands of emaciated and sick prisoners and piles of corpses. The Red Army set up field hospitals to treat over 4,500 who were suffering from malnutrition and tuberculosis, medical personnel working 18-hour shifts to try and save as many lives as possible and alleviate suffering. Ivan Matyushkin, the last Red Army witness to the liberation, is currently 98 years old. At number 7 is the last living World War II Medal of Honor recipient. Born in West Virginia in 1923, Hershel W. Williams enlisted in the United States Marine Corps in 1943, after being rejected earlier due to his only being 5 foot 6 inches tall. A flamethrower operator, one of the most dangerous jobs on the battlefield, Williams served in the 21st Marine Regiment, 3rd Marine Division, seeing action on Guadalcanal and Guam. During the Battle of Iwo Jima in February 1945, Corporal Williams' actions were decisive during an attempt by Marines to clear out a network of Japanese pillboxes and bunkers. During an assault, Williams was the only unwounded man left, and using his flamethrower successfully destroyed a pillbox. He then returned 5 times to his company area to refuel his weapon, before going back into action, each time destroying a Japanese position. For 4 hours, Corporal Williams, covered by only 4 riflemen, assaulted Japanese pillboxes and personally killed Japanese soldiers who charged out to try to kill him. It was the same day as the famous flag-raising photograph was taken atop Mount Suribachi. In October 1945, Williams received the Medal of Honor from President Harry S. Truman at the White House. Williams continued to serve in the Marine Corps Reserve until 1969, reaching the rank of Chief Warrant Officer Class 4, and also was a Veteran Affairs Counselor, suffering himself from post-traumatic stress disorder. He is currently 98 years old. At number 6 is French veteran Léon Gautier, the last living veteran of Commando Kieffer, the famous Free French naval unit that was immortalized in the Normandy landings. Commando Marins were formed in Britain in 1942 from Free French volunteers and modelled on the British commandos, themselves only 2 years old. Part of No. 10 Inter-Allied Commando, the 1st Battalion de Fusiliers Marins Commando, under the command of Lieutenant Commander Philippe Kieffer, landed on Sword Beach on D-Day. The unit suffered 27 killed during the storming of German positions, most famously the Casino de Rivabella, before advancing inland to link up with British airborne forces at Pegasus Bridge. By the end of D-Day, 25% of the unit were killed or wounded in action. Gautier was born in 1922 and became a French Marine in 1940, helping defend Cherbourg during the Battle of France. Evacuated to England, he joined Commando Kieffer in 1943, training in Scotland. He took part in the D-Day landings and was in action for 78 days during the Battle of Normandy. After the war, he married an Englishwoman and worked as a coach builder, partly in Africa. He is currently 99 years old. Position number 5 on our list is the last dam-buster, Johnny Johnson. The 1943 RAF raid to destroy the Ruhr dams to degrade German armaments production is one of the epic stories of World War II, with its special bouncing bombs. The raid was partially successful, breaching 2 dams and destroying 2 hydroelectric power stations and damaging or destroying several mines and factories. 53 RAF servicemen were killed and 3 captured, with 8 Lancaster bombers not returning. George Leonard Johnson, known as Johnny, was born in 1921 in Lincolnshire and volunteered for the RAF in 1940. Not achieving the required grades to become a pilot, he opted instead to become an air gunner. Throughout 1942, he flew many missions with No. 97 Squadron and then trained as a specialist bomb aimer, and survived an encounter with a German night fighter on a raid on Munich in December 1942, during which his Lancaster lost an engine to enemy fire and the second malfunctioned. The American pilot Joe McCarthy making a forced landing at RAF Bottisford. Selected to join the top-secret No. 617 Squadron under the command of Guy Gibson, Johnson began training for Operation Chastise, the dam's mission. Flying in McCarthy's Lancaster T for Tommy against the Zorpa Dam, the Lancaster had to make 10 passes over this difficult earthen dam before Johnson dropped the bomb. Johnson subsequently received the Distinguished Flying Medal for his role in the operation. Commissioned in November 1943, Johnson flew 19 more missions with No. 617 Squadron and then became a bombing instructor till war's end. Qualifying as a navigator, Johnson flew on Avro Lincolns and Shackletons post-war before retiring from the RAF in 1962 as a squadron leader, becoming a schoolteacher and a local politician. Appointed a member of the Order of the British Empire, an MBE, in 2017, Johnny Johnson is currently 100 years old. At number 4 is another aviation hero, this time an American, the last World War II triple ace, Bud Anderson. Born in 1922, Bud Anderson from Oakland, California, joined the USAAF in 1942, training as a fighter pilot. He deployed to England in late 1943 with the 357th Fighter Group, flying the P-51 Mustang. On the 3rd of March 1944, he shot down his first enemy plane, a Messerschmitt Bf 109, and after 4 more such victories became an ace. On the 29th of June 1944, Anderson shot down 3 Focke-Wulf FW-190s over Leipzig, and on the 5th of December 1944 bagged 2 more FW-190s over Berlin, making him a double ace. He ended the war a major with 16 1/4 victories under his belt over the space of 116 combat missions, making him a triple ace. After the war, Anderson was a test pilot and also commanded squadrons, his last being combat over Vietnam in 1970. Anderson retired as a full colonel in March 1972. Bud Anderson is currently 100 years old. At number 3 on our list is a second woman, World War II SOE agent Phyllis Latour. Born in Durban, South Africa, to a French father and British mother, Latour moved to Britain and joined the WAFs, the Women's Auxiliary Air Force, in November 1941 as a flight mechanic. Fluent in French, she was recruited by SOE, the Special Operations Executive, an organization created by Winston Churchill to, quote, set Europe ablaze. Specialist in espionage, sabotage, and reconnaissance in occupied territories, Latour was trained as a wireless operator, one of 40 women to be dropped behind enemy lines in this role. Being commissioned a section officer in November 1943, she parachuted into Normandy on the 1st of May 1944 to join a French resistance cell. If caught, she faced torture and execution by the Gestapo, and many of her comrades who parachuted behind German lines with the SOE met such a grim fate. Latour was very lucky, and though questioned by the Germans, she managed to conceal her identity. She sent 135 coded messages from occupied France, which helped the Allies to bomb German military targets in the lead-up to D-Day. In September 1945, Latour was made an MBE for her services in France. She now lives in New Zealand, and at 101 is the last female SOE agent still living. At number 2 is another aviation record holder, the last Battle of Britain pilot. John Hemingway, who hails from Dublin in Ireland, is the last of the few hundred Spitfire and Hurricane pilots that battled the Luftwaffe in the skies over southeastern England in the summer of 1940. During the preceding Battle of France, Pilot Officer Hemingway had shot down a Heinkel 111 and a Dornier 17. Shot down twice during the Battle of Britain, Hemingway managed to damage a Messerschmitt 109 during dogfighting and in July 1941 received the Distinguished Flying Cross. Hemingway served on in the Royal Air Force until 1969. He now lives in a retirement home in Dublin and is aged 102. At position number 1 on our list is the last World War II recipient of the Victoria Cross, Britain's highest award for gallantry. John Cruickshank was born in Aberdeen, Scotland in 1920 and joined the Territorial Army in 1939 before transferring to the Royal Air Force Volunteer Reserve in 1941. Trained to fly as part of the Empire flying scheme in Canada and the US, he qualified as a pilot in July 1942 and in March 1943 was assigned to No. 210 Squadron as a Catalina flying boat pilot based at RAF Solomvo in the Shetland Islands, helping to protect the vital convoy routes against German U-boats and surface raiders. On the 17th of July 1944, Cruickshank attacked U-361, a German Type 7C U-boat that was on the surface, flying into a hail of anti-aircraft fire. On his first pass, Cruickshank's depth charges did not release from the plane, so he was forced to make another pass, this time sinking the U-boat. Cruickshank was wounded, as was his co-pilot and 4 other crewmen, whilst his navigator was killed. Cruickshank had an astounding 72 wounds, but despite this, he refused medical attention and managed to fly the damaged Catalina 5.5 hours home to base, despite lapsing in and out of consciousness. He required a blood transfusion before he could be taken to hospital. Cruickshank received the Victoria Cross from King George VI at Buckingham Palace. He left the RAF in 1946 and became a banker. John Cruickshank is currently 102 years old. John Cruickshank is at 102 one of the oldest World War II veterans still living, but not the oldest. Though not part of our list, you may like to know that the oldest World War II veteran living today is a veteran of the Imperial Japanese Navy, Mikizo Ueda, who served in the Imperial Navy throughout the war, and while stationed in Japan in August 1945, witnessed the Hiroshima atomic bomb. He is currently an astounding 112 years old, and is also the oldest man in Japan. Many thanks for watching. Please subscribe and share, and also visit my audiobook channel, War Stories with Mark Felton. You can also help to support both of my channels at PayPal and Patreon. Details in the description box below.